guys, what's going on? It's Coach BJ here with the third installment of Aero as. This is a segment where I compare, up till now, a bunch of different hand positions. I actually just put one against the other and we see what comes out on top. A lot of times we know what's going to be faster, but by how much? That's the real question. So we have a Aero sensor on the bike to really quantify all of that for us. Today is all about being on the hoods or being on the tops, both of which are very common in a very long race or possibly a group ride, or even a training ride. But really the Aero advantage is something we apply to a competitive setting. So before you do anything, hit like, hit subscribe. You want to stay up to date with all the new content. We have Sunday live race alongs where you get to work out to race footage. We have some behind the scenes stuff going on, how to analyze your data, and then we have the Aero segment. All right, so a couple questions that I got on the previous two segments. What does the number mean? Why do we care? The higher the number is, the slower you're going, or the more drag you have. So you want a lower number. If that number was 0, you would be super fast. So the higher the number, the slower you're going. You'll notice this is in the hundreds, so somewhere between 200 and 450. I shouldn't be up to 450, but let's just say 200 to 500. The real number itself would be 0.200 or 0.400. Just for simplicity up here on that sensor, put it up in the hundreds, just to make it easier to read. And then the footage, you don't have to watch the footage of me riding. Some people find it interesting to see in real time what position is faster or slower and kind of see the adjustments and how that plays into it. You'll notice that it takes a minute to stabilize. So you'll want to watch the end of each run. I do this nice straight run that's about a mile long. The back half mile of each course, and maybe I'll start putting the course map up on here for you guys to see, like the Garmin course map. But the back end or the second half of that run is going to be stable, so it's pretty much going to equal what the average of the whole thing is. So when I average all the time with the hands and the tops, that number will be reflected with the most stable part of the run, which is towards the end. So you'll notice either those numbers steadily climbing until they stabilize, or the other way around, steadily dropping until they stabilize. But the back half's usually pretty accurate. All right, guys, take a look. I'm going to put it in 2 times or 2x, just to fast forward through all the riding. Watch it. I'll see you guys on the other end. If you want to skip ahead, you can always go to the description, and there will be a link to the jump ahead point. All right, guys, see you on the other end.
Sweet, I don't worry about you. I just worry about me. So you better run. You don't know what I mean. Take it down in 1, 2, 3. Phone is buzzing up, beep beep. I don't care about you. I just care about me. So you better run. Take your pretty outfit and go. Show yourself right out of my zone. Now before I lose my control. Grass is always greener, you know. So I used to stand in it fall. Run back home to mama, let's go. Grass is always greener, you know.
thinking that I could have done something, but now I'm left with an empty heart. No making amends, no waking up beside you and holding you till we forget it all. How could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. You couldn't keep the door shut, and now the frostbite's creeping in. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here, so come home. Why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. Got me stone cold. No Wizard of Oz can undo what I've done. Completely out of luck this time. I'm stuck in reverse. I gotta get away now, but I can't seem to take the lead. Oh baby, how could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. Still, I find myself hoping that you'll find your way back to me. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here, so come home. Why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold.
All right, so today's all about being on the tops versus being in the hoods. Those two positions are very common for a longer ride, a lot of training rides, a lot of group rides. All of this data is collected by myself. So being on the hoods drafting is not necessarily going to have that same turbulence or that same aerodynamic effect as being in a draft versus on your own. So this all relates to when you're on the front of the group, or if you get dropped and you're trying to get back to the group. This is when that applies. Okay, I doubt anyone will be on the tops in a breakaway in a race for the most part, because it's a very relaxed, not aerodynamic position. But let's talk about by just how much. So if we look at just the CDA, let's pull this up. Hoods versus the tops. On the hoods, and this is interesting, we'll get to this, 0.375. So the meter that I put up would say 375. So 0.375. Tops are 0.4. I got an average of 0.4 flat. Difference of 0.025. Not a huge difference. Something super exciting to look at is just the consistency of my testing method. Using the same location, always leveling the sensor, making sure everything is stable and as scientific as possible. The last time, let's just skip to this. The last time I tested hoods, let's see, this time it was 0.375. If you look at the other time when I tested hoods and Sphinx, it was 0.374. So we ended up with almost the exact same number on different days, different kit, different conditions. So just by setting up that sensor the right way and having a good standard protocol, you're going to get very reliable results. So that can give you confidence in these numbers are real. These are real numbers. Cool. So we have a difference of 0.025. You can see the density, the air density, 1.215. Doesn't really matter for you guys, but it's just good to have because that factors into the aerodynamic projections, the density of the air. which depends on the weather. Cool. So that's our CDA difference. Let's see what that says, what that does to our times. So my 3 golden distances, if you've seen the other 2 segments, are 1K, 4K, and 20K. If you haven't seen those segments, go back. Just pause this here, go back, watch the other ones. You're going to want to see them all. They'd actually, you know what? They don't have to be in order, but you're going to want to see them all. So 1K, that's a common time trial on the track. It's also a big marker in a race. 1K to go, you'll go under that banner. So that's a good distance for us to check. 4K, that's the individual pursuit or the team pursuit distance. That's always a nice little time to look for. It's a great distance for a breakaway, giving yourself 4 minute or 4K of really trying to get some good separation from the group in a road race or any race. And then the 20K, also a TT, a road TT, the 20K TT, and just a little bit more indicative of a hard section of a race. We're going to go hard for about half an hour to try and chase the group down or to try and, whatever. So 1K, 4K, 20K. I do all of these at 250 watts for a couple reasons. One of them is to make sure that the speed is above 20 miles an hour. I want that speed to be relatable to the most people possible. Some people's races never dip below 30. Awesome. Some people's races, barely hit 20. But being somewhere in the 20s is a good critical mass. Most people will spend some time in that range. It also is a very reliable power for me. I know that I can go to 250 and hold it. It's not too low. It's not way too high. I can hold it comfortably, which gives me nice, accurate results. Okay, so we're looking at the difference in the 1K. We have a difference of 2 seconds. So minute 42 to minute 45. We got some decimals in there, but basically 2 seconds. Not much of a difference over the course of 1K. So, in about 2 minutes, you're saving 2 seconds. We look at the 4K. We're looking at the difference of almost 7 minutes to 7 minutes. We're saving about 8 seconds. Let's just round it up to 10. So over the course of about 7 minutes, you're saving 10 seconds. That doesn't sound like a lot. 6:51 and a half to 7 minutes doesn't sound like a lot. But in a 4K time trial, 10 seconds is huge. That being said, you wouldn't be doing the 4K time trial at 250 watts. You'd be going absolutely all out. And you wouldn't place with, in an elite competition, you wouldn't qualify with a time that slow. So these aren't necessarily great time trial times, but it's a nice, consistent representation. Something that I mentioned in the other videos that you would have seen, the time delta will be the same whether I'm pedaling at 250, 450, or 650. The times will be different. So instead of going 6 minutes and 51 seconds, it might be 4 minutes and 51 seconds. But the difference, that 8.5 second delta, will be the same as long as I pedal the exact same wattage on the hoods and the drops. Or I'm sorry, the hoods and the tops. Cool. Same thing with the 20K. We're looking at a difference of 34.5 minutes versus 35. So 42.3 seconds, basically half a minute, a little bit more than half a minute. Not huge. We looked at the difference. Go look at that second episode. Look at the difference between being on the hoods or in the Sphinx position. And take a look. Compare the 20K, the 4K, and the 1K. Specifically that 20K. Compare that to this and see how this is under a minute, and then see how much time, I don't want to spoil it, how much time I saved being Sphinx and on the tops. So take a look at that. Super exciting. Let's go to watts quickly because people like to know, we like to talk about power and watts. So I'm going to talk about it in miles per hour because in America we love our miles per hour, but the kph is up there as well. So on the hoods, we're using 94 watts. On the tops, we're using 99 watts, a difference of 5 watts. So at this point, we all know being on the tops is slower. It looks slower. Your body's more upright. You look more like a sail. So we knew it was slower, but by how much? So at 15 miles an hour, you're saving 5 watts or wasting 5 watts. 20 miles an hour, it's a difference of 11 watts. 25 miles an hour, difference of 21 watts. And that's where it starts to get significant. So let's just say you have a threshold of 200 watts. Make it a nice round number. 20 watts difference would be 180. So it's the difference between going 180 and 200. If 200 was your threshold, 180 is 90%. So it's the difference between 90% and 100. That could be a big difference. If you have a threshold power of 300 watts, 280 to 300, we're looking at a little bit less than 95%. Let's say 93, 94%. So we're looking at just the bottom of that threshold range, which usually starts at 95%. Let's say 93% to 100%. That's a big difference. So those 20 watts can really have a big impact on how long you can sustain that power and with what kind of repeatability. So 20 watts is where it starts to get serious. Still not a big deal, or not a huge deal compared to other differences in aerodynamics. And then we go to 30 miles an hour or 48 kph, difference of almost 40 watts. And that can really pack a big punch, especially if you need to be going 30 miles an hour. I would say who's going 30 miles an hour on the tops? That's a good question. But 40 watts is going to be significant. You'll really be suffering for that. Cool. So let's bring this up one more time. One last little overview, little meta. These are the 3 different tests we did with their CDAs. The first segment was in the drops with straight arms versus bent arms. That had the lowest difference between the two at 0.01. This one that we just did is a little bit in the middle, so at 0.02. The hoods and the Sphinx had a huge difference at 0.08, rounded up to 0.09, almost a 0.1 difference. So that's going to be an exciting one. If you like to see the difference between those, between the CDA and the aerodynamics of that, that's episode number 2. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any suggestions, I have a bunch of suggestions in my inbox for different positions. We're going to do some descending, descend on the top tube, which hopefully I don't crash while I'm doing that, but descend on the top tube, descend on the hoods, descend in the drops, crazy ones like how much slower is it drinking from your bottle, all of that stuff. So I got some good suggestions. If you have any suggestions, pop them in the comment, send them to my inbox, on Instagram, on Facebook. You guys know where to find me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I really appreciate it. It's going to help me keep making more of these. I want to thank the guys at Noshio, which is that Aero sensor that really helped me dial in my methodology and my technique. And they've been really supportive through the whole thing. And a lot of you guys know me from the track and from other races around the country. If you're looking for coaching, I'm a cycling coach, so hit me up. Anything you need, aerodynamics, performance, strength and conditioning, let me know. And until next time, guys, get smart, be strong, go fast.